Council Transportation Committee for April 14th, 2023. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Did anyone have any changes to the agenda? All right, if not, we will deem it approved, and we are on to approval of the April 10th, 2023 Transportation Committee minutes. Did anyone have changes or additions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vento. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Tony Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. And now we are on to employee recognition. I'm going to turn to Deputy General Manager and CEO Brian Funk.
Hi, thank you, Chair Barber and members of the committee. Today, we're bringing forward 4 employees as part of our ongoing recognition program. Our first honoree will be coming up from rail vehicle maintenance, whose staff are responsible for maintaining our fleet of light rail vehicles, followed by 4 honorees that are part of the team who are supporting new applicants and addressing one of our major concerns, which is bus operator hiring. And so we're really excited to have all of our honorees here today. Each of these individuals have distinct roles that are all important, but their story is a collective one of success. And so they've each been contributing in outstanding ways, and we're proud to have them here today. So with that, I will turn it over right now to Bob Webby. And Bob, if you want to come up, and you can introduce our first honoree.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bob Webby. I'm Assistant Maintenance Manager at Light Rail Vehicle Maintenance. Today I am proud to introduce Electromechanic Technician, CJ Bond. As you know, we've been facing a worker shortage, and because of that, we've asked our team to support one another collectively to do our best and keep up with vehicle maintenance. CJ has repeatedly shown his willingness on several occasions to voluntarily take on less desirable shifts so we could have a full coverage that we need to have a functional and safe work environment. This is not something we see happen every day, and we appreciate CJ for stepping up and taking that on. So we would like to thank CJ for everything that he does in helping support our agency's goals, and he's taken on less desirable shifts to help maintain the safe work environment, keeping enough employees on other ends of the shift. So, thank you, CJ.
Thank you so much. And if you want to just grab a seat in the front row, and we'll come give plaques at the end because we've got a bunch of them tonight. So thank you so much.
First row.
Whatever.
Sorry. There you go.
We're adaptable.
Perfect. All right, and then next I'll introduce Luis Martinez, if you want to come up, and we have a couple members of our human resources team to introduce as our first of 3. So come on down.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members, and members of the committee. My name is Luis Martinez. I'm the HR manager in our talent acquisition specialist team in HR, and I am very thrilled to introduce you Beverly Brown, our talent acquisition specialist, and Janice Jorimbi, our HR assistant. So I'm actually going to start with Beverly, if that's okay. So Beverly has been working with the Metropolitan Council for over 22 years. Has been for a long time. She started in May of 2000. As a matter of fact, she came in here for a short a project called the Hiawatha Light Rail Project. It looks like she sticked around for a little longer than that. Beverly has demonstrated a great dedication on the work she does. With this bus operations project, she has shown tremendous passion with the amount of dedication, pretty much kicking out the extra gear and making sure that we're tackling on the need that we have for our stakeholders here at Metro Transit. One of the stats that I want to share for Beverly is she has been the key person on almost tripling the amount of hires versus last year, on pretty much hiring the amount of bus operator. Another piece that I want to hire, she has also been the key piece of, as of the start of this year all the way to today, we have hired a total of 154 bus operators, as she being the key piece. So yeah, Beverly is an amazing collaborator. She likes to work with everyone in HR as well as everyone in different departments within Metro Transit. High-level customer service, always working with customers on a one-on-one basis. I've heard when she talks to the customers, mostly when she's making the just job offers, always making sure they're excited and that they are, they're looking forward to coming on their first day of employment here with us at the Met Council. I'm very honored for Beverly to be part of the HR team and to have her in my team in our talent management team. So thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
And then I have Janice Jaremby, our HR assistant. So Janice just started in October of 2022. In her short time, she has made a huge impact in our hiring process. Janice has demonstrated willingness to go that extra mile. During a lot of our kick up high end gear, she has been working extra hours. She has been coming in on weekends, doing orientations on Saturday for the part-time. Doing the weekend events like, pretty much everyone on the team. And again, she has demonstrated the willingness and the passion to be part of the HR team here. It's been a great pleasure to be working with Janice. She, again, it's been an honor to have her on the team as well. So again, being a key piece on making sure that we're moving forward to our goals here in the Metropolitan Council as well as Metro Transit as well. So thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and to introduce our final honoree today, call up Assistant Director of Bus Transportation, Donathan Brown.
Good afternoon. My name is Donathan Brown, Madam Chair and council members. I'd usually do this off the top of my head, but as you will soon hear, you will understand why I can't. There's too much to talk about. I'm introducing Anna Penland. She has 32 years with Metro Transit. That's in 2 segments. She started as a bus operator, became a relief instructor, chose to venture to another city to apply her craft, came back to us, thank God. Started and came back to us in 2018 and has been with us for 17 years. When I looked at that, I couldn't believe how long it had been. I was a manager when she came back, and that time flew, I'll just say that. She is currently an assistant transportation manager on an assignment doing giving personal touches to our bus operator applicants, where Beverly and Janice leave off, helping them get through the process. Anna picks up. She takes the time that's necessary for some of our candidates to get the application completed, answer questions about being a bus operator, and basically walks them through step by step of everything they need to do. One story is a gentleman who actually came here from Rhode Island to be a bus operator. He needed a special touch. Anna provided that touch, and he'll be soon starting with us, hopefully.
All right.
Anna has a passion for providing instruction to people. That's why she was a relief instructor. She was a great relief instructor. Her other passion is supporting her coworkers at each and every level, including me when I need it. So thank you. Anna is a part of our peer support program. She is heading the rewrite of that program so that we can make sure that our operators are taken care of. She leads our operators engaging and connecting communities. She identifies bus operators who can go out and speak to the position, who can provide insight to any new applicants. She is incredible, I'll just say that. There's a line at her door when she was an ATM for everybody to come and have a conversation with Anna. Anna never closes her door. She's here all times of night. She is the most reliable peer support person that we've ever had in the agency. Doesn't matter the time of night. Her husband James is here. He can attest that that they get woken up at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whenever anything important happens. She rides that line between the manager and the peer support person better than anyone I've ever seen. And I'll just say that I want to thank her for everything she does for Metro Transit, everything she does for me. She's an incredible person. And I think she wants to say something, so.
Yes, I would like to say, I am grateful to work at Metro Transit and Metropolitan Council. We are in the people business, and I love collaborating with people from our United Nations here at Metro Transit. We have so many fascinating people from all walks of life at our agency. People at Metro Transit help me to be a better person and help me to accomplish so many meaningful visions along my journey. I want to thank all the operators who are dedicated to our OECC program, Operators Engaging Connecting Communities. Their representation for Metro Transit in the communities showcase professionalism, caring, and commitment beyond their daily scope of duties. We have an abundance of talented employees at Metro Transit, Metropolitan Council. I am honored to work in partnership with people I consider to be the best in our industry. I also want to thank my support system in my personal life, which is my James. Above all and most of all, he is my best friend, my peer support, and yes, that H word, husband. I am thankful to my Creator for assigning me to the gift of helping people, and every day, that is what I set out to do. Thank you all.
I'll hand out some plaques over here, but I just want to say thank you to all of you. All of this is just fantastic, all the great work that we get to see. And, you know, sometimes we have some challenges in our roles, but to hear these stories really makes this job feel so much wonderful better. So thank you very much. And I'll hand out some more words. All right, come on over. Thank you.
Seems like there ought to be a picture. Pardon? Seems like there ought to be a picture. I know.
Thank you so much. Thank you. 154 operators.
I take pictures. Do it.
Okay, we can take some pictures. Yes, we can do that.
I did.
Thank you so much. Okay. Let me get you.
I can get some pictures.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Thank you for hearing the ball.
Thank you. You know.
All right.
Come on over here, young man.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
You all, let me sneak through.
Come on. You're taller, you can see.
Ready? Smile. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Will that get on the website? That was lovely.
Very moving.
All right, well, that was our fun part of our meeting, for sure.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
We're going to continue to do this. We have to have Kleenexes.
I know, and Anna is out of South Garage, so like, she would always take the time to invite Wendy and I to retirement events and things like that, and so it made me a little smushy, so you can see I'm kind of soft and gooey when you thought I wasn't. All right. On to reports. We're going to go first to MTS Services Director Charles Grosson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. A few updates for you, although a number of our exciting business is actually on the agenda tonight for further discussion. So I'll we'll share most of that in the rest of the meeting. We don't have a TAB or TAAC update tonight, but just to share a couple of the highlights of the TAB report, have been 57 traffic-related fatalities in Minnesota so far this year, and that's too high of a number, but the good news is that it's 26% less than last year and on a downward trend over the last 3 years. So some good work, but 57 too many, and work yet to be done. We also at TAB last week heard results of a number of listening sessions that we held and many council members joined over the last few months with some of our local partners around transportation policy plan goals and objectives. And so we were able to hear a recap of those listening session themes, as well as beginning the pivot toward how we will work with our partners and with the council to develop goals and objectives for the new TPP based in part on what we heard from our partners. So exciting work, and we're excited to bring that to this group and others as work begins. I'll also share a external recognition that the council received. This is actually a partnership between Metro Transit and MTS, but each year WTS Minnesota honors achievements of members of the Minnesota transportation community through recognition awards, and the 2023 award event was held last Thursday. The council was awarded the Innovative Transportation Solutions Award for Metro Transit Micro, which of course is a partnership between MTS and Metro Transit. So just as a reminder, that's a pilot on-demand ride-sharing service in North Minneapolis that was launched last September. On the award description, I'll just share the three folks who accepted the award on behalf of the whole council, but explicitly removing traditional silos, Micro has leveraged the strengths of its primary partners, Metro Transit with project initiation and management through shared mobility program manager Meredith Klokatka, ongoing service planning and project management of senior planner Victoria Dan, and then MTS for ongoing operation and project management by program manager Sheila Holbrook-White, as well as our vendors. And Sheila is not here tonight because she just finished presenting at a national conference we're hosting here in town on another important initiative that she's leading for us. So exciting recognition to receive, but also a snapshot of important work that we're doing in cross-divisional partnerships across the region. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council members? I just pass our, Councilmember Carter.
Just thinking back to the summary of TPP input, is that here for us, or is there someplace that I can go to get that?
Yes, Madam Chair, council member, in development on its way here with stops along the way before we bring it to the council. So coming.
All right, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? I extend our congratulations to the team. That's very cool. And I know what a great group of people, and Sam, and I do appreciate kind of more of the cross-functional work that's happening. I think it's improving what we do, so. All right, if there's nothing else with that, then I'm going to turn to Deputy GM and COO Brian Funk.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. Two quick items out of Metro Transit and building on the partnership Charles referred to with the APTA Mobility Conference. As you all recall, we had a presentation on that at a prior council meeting. Chair Zelli officially opened the conference this morning at the opening ceremony with an incredible presentation. And so the APTA reported 1,200 people coming in and expecting to attend the events this week, their highest attendance in 15 years, which is terrific. It says a lot about our region and hopefully the reputation of both of our organizations for delivering high-quality transit. Again, it started on Sunday, goes through Wednesday, and one of the things that's been really heartening to be out riding and greeting our guests and working at the host booth has been the interest in our technical tours. They've all filled up and have overflow, and we're looking at sort of backup plans, and those kicked off this morning, and the feedback has been extremely positive. So we're really proud with the way things are going, including from the airport over the weekend. People had good things to say about the ease of riding Blue Line into town. And then the final thing from myself is building on what Luis had shared from Human Resources. Year-to-date, Metro Transit has had 154 new bus operators start with us, which is off to a fantastic start. So we're really excited about the work that had been done last year to continue to advance this and the teams that are making the most of this opportunity. So in addition, we have 42 additional people who are in training right now, with nearly 500 people who are in a different stage of the pipeline. And so we're going to keep working on this. And the good news is that next month, myself and the Director of Service Development, Adam Harrington, will be coming back to describe some improvements and enhancements to our service based on this good news. So we're going to start to see some more service in June and again in August, and things are on the right track. So it's good news all around. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Chambliss?
Just really appreciative of getting the updates of the reports and hearing from the staff that helped make it happen today with the awards. Getting the enhanced service is exactly what we need, and I'm looking forward to continuing whatever the best practice, hearing from you about whatever your best practices are to get us to our targeted numbers.
Absolutely. And Madam Chair and Council Member, I think we can, with knowing that there's an interest there, we'll make that our primary focus when we come back for our service changes and talk about some of the both process improvements and feedback that we've used to make those changes.
Okay. Additional questions, comments? I would just echo that. It's very good to hear some positive direction with all of this. It's just going to help us make better decisions as we hopefully bring more transit back. So. Councilmember
Just a
Carter.
comment. I was able to go down to the conference, and actually I attended the diversity committee and also the workforce, and I was really impressed. What really impressed me the most was the same thing I saw when I visited the garage, was the camaraderie, the diversity, and the teamwork, and it's very impressive, and it's a statement as to what you guys have been building. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilmember Carter. Thank you very much. And I think one thing that also struck me during the opening session from our speaker today was that unlike a lot of industry associations, we're not in competition with each other. These transit agencies were serving different markets and have different unique purposes. And so that was really neat to see, because I think it started off the conference on a great note. So people are very open and sharing and wanting to exchange ideas and information.
Very good. Anything else? All right, thank you. Now we're on to business. Our first order of business is the consent agenda. There's 2 items on consent. I'd entertain a motion to approve the items on consent.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the items on consent are adopted. To our first business item, it's business item 2023-91, which is a Metro Beeline motion or business item, and it's Frank Alarcon. I will get better at saying your name. I don't know why I stumble over it.
Good afternoon, Chair Barber, committee members, Frank Alarcon with the Metro Transit Arterial Bus Rapid Transit Department. Business item 2023-91 is to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute statement of work 20I-066A with Hennepin County to receive approximately $1.35 million of funds for Hennepin County financial participation in the construction of the fiber optic communication infrastructure along the Metro Beeline corridor. In addition to construction of bus rapid transit stations and other transportation improvements, the Beeline project, like other arterial BRT lines, involves construction of fiber optic communication infrastructure along the corridor. What this fiber infrastructure does is supports the technology at BRT stations behind fare collection, security cameras, real-time transit information, and other features at our stations that contribute to that high-quality customer experience that we strive for on BRT. Throughout our coordination with local partners on the design of the Beeline, Hennepin County has identified the need to grow its countywide fiber optic network through investment in shared fiber infrastructure through the Beeline project. The council entered into similar and very successful partnerships with Hennepin County as part of the C and D line projects, and so with this partnership, we're continuing that momentum. And to facilitate collaborative shared fiber optic infrastructure projects with Hennepin County such as this one, a couple of years ago in 2021, the council executed master agreement 20I-066 with Hennepin County. Work performed under this master agreement is recognized through statements of work with terms and conditions outlining the scope of each project and the partner's responsibilities. The associated statement of work for the Beeline project addresses the parties' responsibilities and Hennepin County's financial contribution for design and construction of the fiber optic communication network along the Beeline corridor within Hennepin County. The council will lead construction of the fiber optic communication infrastructure as part of the overall Beeline project construction, and Hennepin County, through this partnership, will own the completed network located within Hennepin County and lease bandwidth back to the county at no cost for our business purposes. So in closing, business item 2023-91 is to authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute statement of work 20I-066A with Hennepin County to receive approximately $1.35 million for Hennepin County financial participation in the construction of the fiber optic communication infrastructure along the Metro Beeline corridor. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Frank. Are there questions from council members? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-91.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Vento. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we are on to business items 2023-96 and 97, which are contracts with North Central Bus, and we have Paul Colton here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm Paul Colton. I'm the fleet manager for the MTS division. And I'd like to start with a brief presentation. This is an abbreviated version of what we presented in February prior to the carryover amendment to bring everybody kind of up to speed with the unprecedented situation that we are kind of facing in supply chain and manufacturing right now. Do I have control of the? Oh, thank you. Thank you. They never let me use the remote control at home, so. All right. So the Metro Mobility fleet has a 5-year useful life of equipment, and the normal practice is to in our situations, extend that life beyond the federal requirements. We operate our equipment at least 5 years and a minimum of 175,000 miles, while the FTA threshold is 150,000 miles. The majority of the Metro Mobility fleet is beyond its useful life right now, and for several reasons, we are exceedingly behind on getting replacement buses. Those include in 2020, we did not have a state contract to purchase from. The state was working through revising their contract, and then the pandemic hit. In 2021, we placed our first order for 313 buses to replace our 2015 and 2016 buses that were ready for replacement based on our replacement schedule. Unfortunately, supply chain and Ford chassis shortages resulted in no deliveries in 2021. Normally, we would have received those in the fall of 2021. In 2022, we were notified that there was going to be a price increase on the state of Minnesota contract, potentially. MnDOT has reviewed some of those requests and has approved the one with North Central Bus, which allows us then to move forward with our contract amendment, which we're doing today. So the financial outlook, and so previously, we would expect to pay for a bus back in 2019. Our last purchase of vehicles that we received was $71,000 for a Metromobility bus. When we entered into a contract with North Central Bus, it was $85,000. And the majority of the amendment we're asking for will push that price up to $115,000. What I will say is, we are very fortunate to have a great partner like North Central. They negotiated with Forest River, the manufacturer that they represent, and we are getting a lower price than many other places because of their tenacity and ability to convince them that, yes, you need to lower that price and not exceed a certain level. Bus pricing is continuing to go up as a result of price increases and challenges in the marketplace. We're expecting our 2022 prices to increase to $150,000, and our 2023 purchases to increase to $165,000. So the important part of this is it's not completely bleak. I'm very grateful to the Transportation Committee and the Council for approving the carryover amendment. And the approval allows us to move forward with,
Sorry.
it's okay. I'm gonna hit the pause button. We'll hit a reset on that.
Okay.
No worries. Now I really do feel like I'm at home, you know. So with the carry forward approval, it gives us the potential to continue to move forward with these really critical purchases for the Metromobility fleet program, and so that we can continue to provide high quality service, reliable service for our customers. We are anticipating completion date of all 351 vehicles that are under contract by March 7th of 2024, when the last bus will roll offline. And our agreement with Forest River and North Central and our other vendor, Hoagland Bus, is that they will start with our 2022 purchase very shortly after that is concluded. So we'll just move right into our next bus manufacturing period so that we can begin to get caught up on fleet replacement. There we go. So there are other things that we can do to try to help mitigate this situation while we're in this period of a slow recovery out of the supply chain challenges. And one of those is we are starting our minivan pilot project, where we have procured 20 accessible minivans. We brought that forward to the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee. They were very excited about piloting this. They're very favorable comments, and we are very interested to see how we can best use those in the Metromobility service. So we anticipate that those will be arriving in May, and we hope to get those deployed in June out in service at all 4 of our garages that deliver Metromobility service. MTS has taken on the responsibility of covering additional maintenance costs to the fleet that is now aged out, helping our contractors with costs that they would not have expected to expend during this contract period because we would have had new buses. And so we're working carefully with them and closely with them on that. And they have said it's been a big help in taking on some of that financial burden. And finally, as we get new buses into service and we retire out our old fleet, we will have our contractors keep those buses and use some of them for extra parts. So some things that are difficult to obtain, like body panels, windows, and those types of things, they'll be able to harvest right off of the retired bus, which will allow us to get vehicles into service faster that were down for repair. So they've said that that will be a huge help. So with that, I'm going to hit the pause button. Are there any questions about the presentation so far before I go into the requested action items?
Councilmember Chambliss?
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the marketplace challenges with the supply chain. Can you expand on what some of those supply chain issues are? I mean, it may seem self-explanatory, but when I look at the cost doubling and tripling, I'd like to know a little bit more about the challenges.
Sure, Madam Chair, council members. So one of the challenges when you lock into a contract price is the commodities price. So when we locked into a 2021 price on a contract, steel started to go up 125%, fiberglass was going up 100%. These items began to escalate. Ford is raising their chassis prices because the steel costs going up, stainless steel costs going up. So your commodities are a big factor in this. But then it compounds to the suppliers of the parts on the vehicle, so your seating, your air conditioning, all of those metals that go into those parts, their prices have gone up. And so during 21 and 2022, I know that Forest River, the bus manufacturer, has seen 4 requests for price increases and has had to adjust their pricing and pass some of that on to their vendors like North Central Bus and Hoagland Bus. Who then are in a tight position and caught in the middle and have to come back to the buyer and say, do you want the buses or not? The price is going to go up, and the state has to approve that. And right now, on the 2021 contract, the state feels that it's not unreasonable. We'll see what they say about the 2022 price increase requests.
Thank you.
Director Carlson.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just if I could expand on it a bit, I mean, the other piece of this is chip shortages and supply demand backlogs. So there's about 40,000 cutaway buses in the United States, and I think there's a backlog of orders for about 20,000 buses. What Paul described about, waiting 3 years without a bus replacement, and we replace all these buses every 5 years, is not just true for us, it's true for a lot of other properties. And so it's a combination of those types of factors, a very limited pool of Buy America compliant vehicle manufacturers in the United States right now, and then just that sheer demand for buses that have not been produced at the level because of microchip shortages, and then also the commodity prices, as Paul mentioned, that have led us to this situation. And it's not something that replacing our fleet and keeping it in good repair is critical to delivering our services, but it's not a blank check, and that's why we're looking at all those other strategies to explore alternatives as well as beneficial for the negotiation that we've engaged in, that the state's engaged in, and that our vendor partner has engaged in on our behalf with the manufacturer.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. And just a little slice of that picture is that Ford, without the chips to produce the chassis, to put on the chassis that they provide, chassis production in 2021 was cut 75%, and it was cut, 65% in 2022. So slowly coming back, but this backlog is really, we're fortunate to be in line to get buses, receive buses already.
Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I admire the mitigation strategies. I was just wondering, how far does that go back? Is that something that you put in effect because of the reality of the price changes, or does that go back a few years and you guys just kind of beefed it up?
Madam Chair, council members, this is new based on the realities that we're facing now. We've never had to do those types of things before. In fact, we've been like clockwork in the past. 2% increase in buses, get our bus orders in with using the state contract, place the order. 9 months later, buses start arriving, we get them into service, and it's very, very smooth and so forth. So this has been very topsy-turvy the last 3 years.
So is that something then you're going to implement in regard to light rail also, or just?
Madam Chair, I would not be able to answer that, council member, not being on the light
We
rail.
can turn to Deputy Chief GM.
Councilmember Carter and Madam Chair, right now, we don't have any procurements out for light rail vehicles, and so should we need to go down that road, that's something that we'll evaluate through that full procurement process.
One of the things we were able to do with the Green Line extension is we purchased the light rail vehicles ahead of time or earlier in the process, so they're already here. And same thing with a lot of our systems infrastructure. So. All right, additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-96.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Carter, seconded by Councilmember Vento. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2023-97.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Vento. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Carter. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our business items for the evening. If there's no objections, I would say all three of them can go on consent to the full council. Okay, very good. All right. Now we're on to information items. We do have three information items. The first is Metro Transit Community Affairs Overview, and we have Sophia Guinness here to present. Welcome.
Chair, council members, good evening. I am Sophia Guinness. I use she, her pronouns, and feel free to call me Sophia. I'm here tonight to introduce myself, my team, what we do, how we do it, and the impact that it has on our work and resources. So to start out, I've been with Metro Transit for over a decade now, focused solely on improving our practice of engagement. I've been in progressive roles of responsibility, and I like to joke that somehow I've been paid for 10 years of getting to do what I love, which is connecting with people and improving processes. I think the most community connections I've done in a year was over 300 meetings, and other years have followed similarly. So I'm very committed to this work, and I have a wonderful team of people that also help us do what we do. And you will know my team. If you haven't met a lot of them yet, I'm sure you will, especially the folks that are in your districts. And they are there for questions and help and for innovation and all those wonderful things. We have folks that are dedicated to the LRT project offices. We have folks that are dedicated to our bus rapid transit projects, and we have folks that help with all other things around our agency. We also have our customer experience and customer relations division. So if you ever, I'll repeat this on the next slide, but Pam Steffen is your lady for if you get a question, a concern, it's Metro Transit, you need to get figured out, she is an amazing resource to help you along. So my team overall really looks forward to working with all of you as we do the best we can for our communities with all of our projects and things in the works. So a little bit about community affairs and kind of the root of what we do and why we do it. At the fundamental level, our job is to build relationships with stakeholders and community in support of our work and mission. And there's a couple mottos that my team kind of works by. One is lean into hard conversations. They'll happen at some point, and I'll kind of demonstrate through some of the sides of how we do that. And then this is stealing from a community member associated with the TAAC project, but progress moves at the speed of trust. And the more that my team can do to elevate community voices, understand customer concerns, and be responsive to challenges, especially when early on, when decisions are more flexible, we'll grow greater understanding of our work, why we do it, how we do it, and the support that comes with it. So really, we help ensure decisions are informed and influenced by our riders and our stakeholders. The team's also there to respond to issues as they arise, and that is both from internal stakeholders. They're like, hey, we're seeing this thing, we need to hear from our customers, like, help us out. And we're like, sure. We go and we develop processes and get that wonderful feedback. Or it's external. Somebody's coming to us, whether it's something associated with a bigger project or just needs within our system and what we have operating. And we work across departments to find solutions and respond. We have a super awesome customer relations team that answers questions every day. And really, to highlight a lot of their work, is they are investigating issues. So, if you could ask, like, what do we do with this? We hear about this thing that happened on this bus or this concern that somebody has. It's not only receiving it, it's looking into it and providing a response. It can even be an idea, right? Something that we haven't considered. It might be checking in with other departments and say, hey, this customer brought this up. Is this something that we could do? And really, we're tracking issues so we know if there's a place or a thing that's persisting, the customer relations team leans into it, and some of our initiatives with our facilities have been supported and driven by the work that our customer relations team does. They are also here when you get the same questions or ideas, and please reach out to us for assistance in responding. Go forward. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the work that we do into engagement. So I talked about our customer relations approach, and we talk a little bit about our engagement approach, both how we approach it, the methods that we use, and the results of those activities, and give a couple examples along the way. So fundamentally, we are trying to hear the issues that are important to communities. And that's why developing ongoing relationships is a fundamental key to what we're doing. And we design strategies to hear from diverse perspectives. And that doesn't mean just sitting back and letting people come to us, but it's actually going out and really seeking a variety of opinions along the way. I want to lean into the engage early and often. The more stakeholders are aware of project details, the more involved that we can be as we move through them. It's part of also how you kind of reduce risk and make sure that you're, part of engagement is being, flexible. You have your outcome, but you want to be able to respond to what people are bringing up or things that you haven't anticipated. And so bringing people along that process really helps us do those things so that we deliver projects and services that serve our communities. We have dedicated outreach coordinators that get to know the soup to nuts details, right? Because they not only need to hear what the community is saying and be vessels of that information back to the projects, they need to know their projects. They need to know our services and our facilities needs so that they can really engage deeply on the issues. Some examples of what we do is the simple just sharing information, hosting project meetings, having newsletters, doing social media, and then it's that deeper work of developing relationships, building community partnerships. We've done that both formally and informally, finding ongoing collaborations, holding smaller group meetings or individual property owner meetings, or having more focused conversations on topics. We also do how to rides, and that program is really focused on reducing barriers for folks entering our system. We have some really awesome coordinators that do that work. We also seek people out. I like to joke that we'll find you. So it is door knocking. It's attending pop-up events. It's responding to at the community saying, hey, can you come to this thing and talk to us about your work, and just being there. A big fundamental piece of our job is just showing up where people need us to be, and being committed to that endeavor. It's also ensuring projects are designed with engagement at the heart. And I'm lucky to work with a really awesome group of people that really see the importance of engagement in our processes. I'm going to give you one example of our services, which is Network Now. I think we've talked a little bit about that project, but it's really to develop the next 5 years of how we operate our service. And the project phases are designed so that as decisions are made and advanced along the way, that the community has come with us, and that the initial kind of values and principles that set the pace of the project were informed first by our communities and our customers, so that we don't just get to the end and people say, what, right? They've come along with us all steps of the way. And if you kind of think of all the methods that we use, here's an example of that in practice. So it is working with BIPOC media sources. It is translating information and putting it where our customers are, and it's designing community meetings that are accessible and easy to get to, and then being adaptive at those meetings. So the middle picture is a picture of us at Rondo Library. I also had the great pleasure of being on the east side and facilitating a group of teenagers that came in, and they're at an age where they don't have the grace of being children anymore, but not the respect of being adults. And one of the things about getting feedback from teenagers is they test you, right? They come in, they really want to give you feedback, but they might poke at you a little bit and make a little fun, right? Like, do you really want to hear from me? And it's having the patience to sit down. And I learned a ton. There was 4 boys. I learned a ton from them. They navigate the East Side bus system. I mean, they could talk about lines way better than I even could. And we heard some really awesome things about their fundamental values and what they need from our transit system. So that's all a way to say as how we design our methods, the flexibility that we bring to the methods we design, and our openness to hear and adapt to what people bring to the table is how we do our work well, and is kind of the commitment of all the team. And you'll see it throughout all of our projects and whatnot. Really want to bring up an important piece before I kind of show some of the metrics of the team, but it's having equitable engagement and considering equity in our processes is also a fundamental piece of how we do our work. And that means sometimes that the hearing from voices, even if they're not the loudest. So really understanding our stakeholders related to a project and elevating those voices is something that we consider through our work. We also take an impact and solutions-based approach to the engagement that we do. And what I mean by that is as you're developing a project, you're looking to understand the impacts, the potential impacts to community, and you're headlining those with the community. Right? This is so that they aren't surprised, right? That people aren't surprised. And then as you hear feedback, you're bringing that back to the project team and workshopping if there are solutions. Sometimes there are, sometimes they're not. Sometimes solutions are big, like our anti-displacement work on the Blue Line, and sometimes they're small, like putting in a guardrail by a station for a property owner so you can keep a little separation from their yard. Both the big and the small leaves the impression of the work that we have done. And so both are critical and part of the work, and why it is helpful to have outreach coordinators embedded, whether it's in our facilities discussions or major projects or operational issues. That approach then leads to the outcomes that our communities remember and value. To give you some examples of how that work has played out, so it was adding 21st Street as an option for the Blue Line, or reevaluating the route between Target Field and West Broadway. It is the Purple Line in the arcade station details. The solution that the project staff was kind of, we heard this is the best, there were still challenges, and then workshopping it more until the solution was just right. We've brought greater understanding to our construction plans through the Green Line project, the Gold Line project, the B Line, as well as our Network Next project. That project has also helped us illustrate the challenges that Metro Transit has faced and how we've made decisions through that process. In 2022, we had nearly 1,000 events with community. And some of those meetings were with one person, some of those meetings were with 200 people. But overall, we touched somewhere between 13,000 and 15,000 people through that work. And a big result of that is, as you go out into the communities that you serve, I bet you will hear the names of many of our outreach coordinators. They are often very well known and appreciated. You'll comments of like, well, I don't like how that happened, but so and so they did their job well, and that is fundamentally a metric and a measure of our team. Our customer relations folks handled over 45,000 calls and responded to approximately 8,000 emails that helped us inform decisions that we've made. And these are calls where people have ideas or problems, right? Our transit information handles the how do I do this type stuff. So this is really getting into the weeds of what our agency does and needs to do. And with that, I hope you all have gotten a glimpse into the world of community affairs. It's really an honor to be able to do this work and to really get to know our communities more. I can't say enough of the awesome work that all of the staff does.
Very good. Thank you, Sophia. And my fellow council members, Sophia and Pam Steffen will become your best friends in responding to emails. So, Councilmember Vento.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sophia, you and your team are terrific. One of the first things that I did fairly early when I joined the council a little over 4 years ago is I took the bus over to Minneapolis and I went and visited Pam Steffen. And it was Friday morning. It was such an informative meeting. So if any of you have time, she will gladly sit down with you, especially new members, sit down with you and explain how they work. I just found it so beneficial. She was showing me around. They were getting new office spaces, but I saw the old one, but it was terrific. And I've also had the opportunity to attend meetings related to the Gold Line and the Purple Line. And Sophia, I have a question. I don't want this to sound critical, but I think you've heard me talk about it before, and I know a few others like Deb have heard me talk about this before. Councilmember Chair Barber. I get concerned about where the community gets to engage early in the process to help influence the project and how it's going to evolve. And how we engage with cities and counties in making sure that as a team we commit ourselves to hearing the community's voices early and often. I've been a part of a few meetings where folks walk in frustrated and they leave even more frustrated because they feel like the plan has been made and that their role is to rubber stamp it and give it all thumbs up. And the minute they start expressing concerns or asking questions or offering suggestions, they don't feel heard. What do you see on the horizon or from other transit organizations or your own experience where we can change that and get to a point where when projects start to really get to the point where we should be beyond all that public input. Not that we don't continue throughout and after, but the basics kind of stuff. And Charles, this may be kind of a question for you too, because I know you and I have talked about this before. I mean, how do we do that?
Chair, council member, that is a big question that could take a lot of conversation, but maybe to just kind of address some of the engagement.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of a project overall, mm-hmm. You have an end goal, mm-hmm. and the benefits that goal will bring. Mm-hmm. And community engagements kind of checking your metrics against that goal. So it's hearing from people about what matters to them, and how the project can be adapted to best meet their needs. And I think we have a lot of examples of where our major projects have adapted because people are bringing issues into the process. I know you all are familiar with the anti-displacement work on Blue Line, but that was not, we knew we needed, support during construction, right? But actually looking deeper into that issue was not something the staff had initially in their work plan. It was being responsive to that. Another example on the Blue Line, just because going through that one in my head, basically saying, okay, we're hearing more from the community about these particular segments in Minneapolis, so we're going to take more time. We're going to make sure that the designs that we bring forward have been vetted thoroughly into the best of their technical ability, and to continue to work with community on those things, and bringing different engagement methods through that process. Sometimes you need one-on-one conversations. Sometimes you need public hearings. Sometimes you need more workshops. And so it's looking at where a project is and what's happening in community, and kind of adjusting and thinking about how you best get through that process to get the information that you need. I like to say that my team has been talking about this topic, and I like to say that as you make change is hard, and there will always be resistance. And it's both a conversation about the values and what you're trying to overall accomplish with a project, and thinking about how you use that community energy. Because if people are walking away feeling unheard, that probably means that more work can be done, because it's pushing the project down, right? That energy and steam is pushing the project down. But if you find those ways that you can adapt and be responsive, you push the project forward. And that goes to how we do our operations and the bus services that we provide. And ultimately, the engagement team is a partner in helping our various directors come to the best solutions, as well as bringing information forward as you all make your decisions. And so that's the engagement side, and a little bit, but obviously it's a big conversation, because ultimately staff are looking for solutions, and the toolbox will have various tools.
Madam Chair, I would like us to invite others who are a part of the process to join in that conversation, including council members where it's appropriate, so that we don't end up as far as we are in a project before that happens, before you start revamping and taking time out. I'd rather take time out early in the project development and really do as much quality community engagement as you can early in the process. There's no perfect solution to it, but it just, I have too many examples in my head that in each of them, people just felt like they were there to rubber stamp, and they walked away frustrated.
Councilmember Carter, and then.
Thank you. I appreciate the question very much, and it's hard to get a current answer to that. It is a very, very big question. I also am very thankful for the work that your team does. I know that it's not easy, and getting input, but also that conversation that helps people feel as though they're the planners, and so the resulting project is something that they've worked hard on and can really have an embrace for. That's, I'm sure, what your team talks about, rather than just answering questions and giving information, co-planning, having a product that people feel is really theirs is the agenda that we want. I wanted to ask about themes. Is there a way that you can share with the council the kinds of themes that repetitively come forward? And is there a way that beyond project by project feedback or concern or themes, is there a way that your team pulls together what happens across projects so that you're able to share with the project teams in the future that you're working with, the kinds of things you've run into? And so here's kind of a set of tools that you can have in advance. Basically, I'm doing a poor job asking the question and tying it back to the question that came earlier. Is there a way that we are co-planning, co-facilitating, co-creating with the community that you can share with us, both based on how we engage and what we learn that can carry us forward?
Chair, council member, a lot of pieces, so
Yeah.
I'll try to touch them all. One is about kind of institutional knowledge and sharing best practices, which I think was at the root of some of what you were asking. And that is a focus of my team right now for sure, which is, and I would say over the 10 years that I've been doing engagement for this body, how we think about it, how it is approached, the resources that are put towards it, it has been an improvement, and I think we are continuing to improve. And part of the structure of the team is so that we don't lose institutional knowledge project to project or issue by issue. For example, we did construction on Green Line 1.0, and what worked there was retained by the team. And so as we've gone forward and did A line and C line and D line and now Gold Line, and you have Green Line 2.0, the construction practices that we learned in communicating have been brought forward. And it's really simple things. It's for example, it's teaching an outreach coordinator that construction schedules are really flexible. You tell a property owner they're going to do a driveway on Tuesday and it rains and it's Thursday. So giving them the institutional knowledge so that they can do their job well. And then also setting up new staff. For example, with the Gold Line, I was able to basically be like, well, the Green Line extension, they learned all these things. We learned all of this from C Line. Liz, look at all these stuff, pick and choose. Now you get to do it better than these people that have rolled it out before have been able to do it. So having the outreach coordinators learn from each other. We talk a lot about the big hairy topics. Like we talk about how do you measure success in opposition, right? Like we go into that, as reflected by the questions, the need to do engagement early and to do a lot on the front end, I think is more understood, and that is a way that the team has been pivoting. The network now is designed that way, right, to have a lot of conversations before we make decisions. The Blue Line extension pivot was designed that way, even though there's issues that come up through the process, the initial intention, and we can continue along those ways. I would say too that there is an inherent, you learn more as you go through a project, and as you learn those things, you have to tell community. And sometimes you anticipate it, and sometimes it's brand new. And so no matter what, there will be new things and new challenges and new things that you have to work through a lifespan of a project. For example, Network Now, we're talking about values, but eventually we'll have to talk about discontinued service and what that means and where we're prioritizing resources. So it engages people differently at different points, and you do your best to anticipate some of those challenges I really call it frontlining, right? If you frontline impacts and make them explicit, I can't tell you how many times, if you have all these questions for a community, right? And so you kind of push it all out. But maybe the thing that somebody cared about was a little bit down, and then you get more information about it, and all of a sudden it's the thing that everybody cares about. So really thinking about those impacts and where there might be solutions, and really bringing that forward in your engagement also really helps kind of mitigate some of that process. And I think, my team is committed to continuing to do this work better and bringing in these best practices and learning from our peers around. And that was, I hope I touched on a lot of stuff, but.
Yeah, you did. I wonder
Sorry,
if I
Councilmember.
could. You did, and I appreciate it. A large part of what you have done is to help us think about, I believe, the layers of engagement. And your team has a huge responsibility of connecting with people throughout the Twin Cities at whatever level and at whatever layer they're at. You're engaging with management committees and you're engaging with community groups. And the Network Now piece, just as a comment, I believe really does put you on the front end, to engage at whatever level and whatever layer in a planning way about the future. So I think that's going to be a huge part of our challenge, and to know more about Network Now is something that I'll challenge myself to do as I request my meeting with Pam Steffens and you perhaps. But our real challenge is to get to that space and place at whatever level, whatever layer people are at, where they feel as though they are actually engaging in the planning. And then the result of that is a result of their having been there early and seeing then what comes back later. It's a real challenge. No simple answer. I appreciate your taking it on and look forward to learning more with you.
Director Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the pieces that often occurs long before Sophia's team even has a project in their hands is a lot of planning by others. And, I think the community's opportunity to influence a project is greatest at the time that there's often the least interest, because there's not a mode, there's not an alignment, but it's that convening around describing challenges, determining problems, how transportation, and this isn't just a transit item, this is across transportation projects. How can a proposal or a project meet community needs that are identified? It's really challenging to get folks in the door to talk about those types of things as compared to reacting to a solution when it's proposed. And so it's a big challenge. But one of the things that the council is actually invested in is a equity evaluation that MTS is in the process of developing, where apart from any particular project, apart from any particular conversation about a corridor, what are the best practices that we can do that yield better and more equitable outcomes, and how can we identify those? So as that project is continuing to develop, we are excited to share that in the future with you, because I think it gets to that really early work before it's approaching the implementation stage that more specific outreach occurs.
Before the bus has left the station?
Correct. And I would just add that I think that, that's part of what our community engagement looks to us. We know our communities and different groups and places where we should be talking, especially early on. And so definitely engage with Sophia and her team on that level. And also to the comments on Network Now. This committee is going to hear a lot about Network Now, so I guarantee you'll be an expert because it's so critical to what we're doing right now, because we're in a position where we now are starting to, hopefully mitigate some of our operator shortage and some of that. So we're going to have to start making decisions about where we think, or at least to provide some guidance as to where we should put service back on the network and all of that. And it's completely tied to Network Now and what the communities really need. So we'll be bringing definitely more information, and we'll make sure that anyone wants some background to, again, get a head start on it. We'll make sure we coordinate that. All right, on to Councilmember Chambliss.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing the questions from the council members on, what additional information we have as we get presented with these different projects. And I also appreciate the expertise of the staff and the ability to listen to so many different voices, not just council members, but community members and other stakeholders during the process. I've learned a lot. I know that one of my passions is engagement, and I'm always pushing for, how do we get to more of the best practices? How do we have more equity during that process? And when we look at more different approaches for equity, it's not going to look like the traditional communication approaches, where you have, step one, step two, and then you finish it. Sometimes, you go back to step one at certain points of the process if that's where the information is guiding you. So it can be very complex, and as a council member, I'm not going to always know what all those pieces are, so I have to rely on the expertise of the staff and the folks that have been at the table, like the anti-displacement work group. They've been, taking half-day Saturdays or full-day Saturdays for multiple times and develop a certain level of knowledge and expertise on that, that me, as a person that gets a presentation, I'll never understand all the dynamics of that. But I would, and then there's that balance of, people saying that, something's pre-baked. Well, yeah, there is work that has to be done before they can even ask the questions for the engagement process. But also, I know as the engineers get more information about their design and that unfolds, for some folks that are, at different places, the light bulb doesn't go off until, in terms of their understanding or even what their issues are, until a certain part of the process sometimes. So that's why I like that continuous engagement cycle. And it also demonstrates that we're not going to just, build the train or the bus or whatever it is, and then just, say, okay, we're done. We had our first meeting. We got, we met our quota of 100 people that we were going to engage, and we're going to move on. And that if that does happen, then people do feel like things are pre-baked, or that no one's listening to them. Listenings happens dynamically, but I don't want to speak, give a speech or anything. But I just really like this dialogue, and I think it's really important to have that. And I'm looking forward to getting more information like we got today. And one of the things that I'd like to see is more information on what we learned from the Green Line project in terms of, how those businesses experience that process, how the homeowners and the neighborhoods experience that process. I know there are old videos out there. I'd like to see some of those sometime, and I've asked for that before, but I think that can also give people some perspective, especially when you're right in the midst of challenges.
And I think some of the community outreach practices that have changed with our ABRT lines, where it did take a lot of the information and practice skills from the Green Line original building, but I think we've really done a more on the ground kind of connection with some of those projects, and that could be an interesting thing to kind of go through too. All right, any additional questions or comments? Councilmember Cameron.
Yeah, I'm going to try and pull together all these threads that have come up from other questions. I don't know if I can formulate a question. I'm still processing all the wonderful comments made by fellow council members. I have had the pleasure of working with your team professionally with new immigrant and refugee communities, and I can attest to the fact that they do a phenomenal job. In particular, the How to Ride service has been really heavily utilized by those communities who just, are not familiar with transit services and just want to understand how to actually interact and interface with those services. So thank you for the work, and thank your team for that as well. I think one of the things that has kind of come up is it's not just about the quantity of engagement, it's also about this depth of quality. And one of the things that I found in working with communities on behalf of the state is really avoiding the transactional relationships between departments and communities. And I think what's particularly challenging for your teams is that it's project-based, a lot of the engagement, and so it feels very transactional. And so I'm really interested in learning more about how you build out relationships with communities, and I think this gets to some of the things that Director Carlson was highlighting, and Councilmember Carter around co-creation, but also starting early enough in the process, where if you have those existing relationships with communities, that's really and asking the right questions at the outset. So maybe we're not asking the right questions if we're not getting a robust response from communities in those early phases of the process, and building out those relationships, because a community may be impacted by an LRT line plus an ABRT line plus a regular route that's coming through. It's all the same community, and if we're going to the same community at 3 different touch points, and they're experiencing the same frustration, we've really done some damage on the relationship and on the reputation of our agency by doing that. And so making sure that it's about relationships and recognizing that those communities, that we need to have a relationship with the community rather than a relationship with the project, is one piece I wanted to highlight. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that as time goes on, we look into more, maybe you're already doing it, but not just hosting and facilitating meetings and inviting community members in, but going out into the community, going to events where we recognize that those communities are out there and asking those questions about specific projects that we know are going. There's festivals all throughout the metro that are neighborhood specific, or they are community specific, but a lot of those have impacted riders for some of the projects that Metro Transit is taking on. And so being proactive and going out into those communities is a really successful way to get even more feedback from both folks who are already interfacing with our services and those who might not be for specific reasons, and finding the answers to some of those questions that we're asking. So I just offer that.
Chair, council member, thank you for all of those comments. I think all the pieces that you brought up are aspects that my team talks about on the daily. And to respond to a little bit of it is Metro Transit doesn't go away. And so whether we're talking to you about a project that is now, or a bus that is rolling on the street, or a safety concern that somebody has, our team does try to approach this from the life cycle of our agency and not just a project. And one of the process improvements that we've been really putting forth is having outreach coordinators just know about all the things that are happening in an area to kind of reduce some of that engagement fatigue. For example, Network Now, right? The staff on other projects have also been bringing out material. We bring out our driver hiring resources. We go to events. I get to work with Miss Anna a ton and other amazing people. So we are doing some of that just kind of community-based work. And to Councilmember Vento's point, I think earlier, is that relationships that are built in trust and mutual understanding bring us the furthest. And so even in small ways, my team really strives to be responsive to people, and really establish those relationships. I have folks from my time on the Green Line extension where I still exchange emails about gardening, and that that's the intangible that comes with engagement. So basically, all that you laid out are pieces that we're striving for, and we'll continue to think about how we can continue to improve those and build the mechanisms in which we can do our work even better, lean into community partnerships, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Any additional questions, comments? I'm sure we will see Sophia back here again, so thank you very much, appreciate it. Next, we're on to our next business item, which is MTS and SDP Zero Emission Bus Transition Plan. And we have Paul back again, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm excited to be here to share the highlights at a very high level, our Zero Emission Bus Transition Plan. I believe the report was provided as an attachment to the agenda. This will dive into kind of just touch the surface on many important areas. And so this plan was built on Metro Transit's plan that was approved by the council a year ago. And we shared the same consultant, AECom, who did a fantastic job of gathering data and really setting the landscape for where we're currently at with zero-emission bus fleets around the country, and looking at our unique situation at MTS and with our STAs. It's a complex issue. It's with quickly evolving environment, and MTS is really at the beginning of this journey, and we're excited to get started and begin to look at those challenges. So at a real high level, buses make up 1% of Minnesota's transportation emissions. So although we're a contributor to that, we're a very small piece of that. The MTS fleet, including the Suburban Transit Authority fleet, account for 33.5 million revenue miles in 2021 of a regional total of 53.7 million revenue miles. So more than half of the miles generated by MTS and the Suburban Transit Authorities. MTS contracts accounted for 54% of regional vehicle revenue miles in 2021, according to the National Transit Database. A lot of that is on Metromobility. Oops. So we use the same principles that Metro Transit used in their plan, and these are adopted into the MTS plan with one additional principle, which is at the top, labeled in green, scalability. And scalability reflects the circumstances unique to contracted transit services and the need to develop zero-emission deployment models tailored to unique services, fleet types, facility ownership, status, and limited duration transit operating contracts. So we want to make sure we take that into account as we plan and move forward. So in the big bus world, the fixed route world, zero-emission bus technology, this is what's available today. The first one is electric trolley bus. It runs similar concept to a light rail line. It's on electric catenary and runs on a fixed guideway. Fuel cell electric bus uses hydrogen. It's an emerging technology, but still has a lot of challenges and questions. But a lot of progress has been made in the last year on this technology. And then finally, the battery electric bus, which I'll be referring to as BEBs throughout the rest of the presentation. This is kind of where the market is, I would say, maybe most ready, and what we are going to explore kind of for the focus of the rest of this presentation. So as technology is evolving quickly, the current advantages of battery electric are cost and flexibility in the location of charging infrastructure. So you can place chargers out on the line, at the garage, and fuel in multiple ways. However, the current limitations are the usable range of the battery and the charging time, which currently limits the amount of service that can use battery electric buses without significantly increasing the fleet size. Establishing the necessary charging infrastructure requires major facility investments. So, service evaluation of the fixed route. Where would we put electric buses if we had them? Where does it make the most sense? So we looked at 3 areas, a 3-tiered evaluation process with our consultants to understand which fixed route services would be suitable for electric buses based on our August 2022 service schedules. So the first step was look at the technical viability, which is pieces of work that fit within the technical limitations of mileage per charge. So looking at a block of work with a vehicle and a driver, how far does it need to go to cover that route in a piece of work each day? The second step was looking at the equity and environmental justice, which I'll refer to as EEJ as I move forward. EEJ priority was relative to each provider's service area. So each was evaluated on its own criteria within its area because they are separate transit systems. And EEJ was broken down into 7 unique variables at the census tract level, and they included these 7 items. 1, lifetime cancer risk from inhalation of air toxins. Population density. Number 3, portion of residents who identify as Black, Indigenous, or persons of color. 4, portions of households lacking a vehicle. 5, the number of American Community Survey data sets that designate the tract as concentrated poverty. The 6th element was portion of households with housing costs that are 30% or more of household income. And then the 7th and final criteria was average land surface temperature on a hot summer day, so kind of the proxy for urban heat island effect. In summary, the routing of each block of service was analyzed to determine the number of miles operated in EEJ areas with assigned ratings of either high, medium, and low priority EEJ areas based on these 7 variables. Details around this somewhat complicated formula can be found in the report on page 74 if you want to dive into that further. MTS and the STPs are focused on deploying BEBs in a fiscally efficient manner where the maximum benefit and usage can be garnered from these significant investments. To achieve a fiscally efficient deployment of BEBs, MTS and the STPs plan to prioritize BEB deployment on the longest technically viable blocks. To guide this focus, blocks are categorized into 4 fiscal efficiency tiers, and that's on table 22 within the report. And this is informed by naturally occurring groups and breakouts or breakpoints in the ratio of route distances to maximize technically viable range by route and length defined in table 8. For example, the maximum technically viable range of a 40-foot bus on our worst day, our worst range day, meaning in the winter when it's cold and the batteries don't have as good a range, is 115 miles. And so this yields the following fiscal efficiency tiers for blocks operating 40-foot buses. At the high level, it'd be greater than 92 miles. Medium high would be from 69 to 91.9 miles. At the medium range, 46 to 69 miles. At the low range, less than 46 miles. So that kind of helps set us appropriateness and biggest bang for the buck on the fiscal responsibility side. Using this methodology, the high fiscal efficiency tiers contains the longest technical viability blocks, while the low efficiency tiers contain the shortest technically viable blocks. For this analysis, we looked again at the August 2022 service levels that we had out on the streets. Okay, so what are our findings of our fixed route service at MTS and the suburban transit providers? When just a technical viability filter is applied to the service, about half of the blocks of service have the potential to be operated with electric buses. Again, a block of services that bus pull out and the work that the operator does from the time they leave the garage to the time that bus pulls back in to the depot. After filtering for technical viable routes, the consultant further analyzed routes for EEJ and then finally fiscal impact. After applying the additional 2 filters, a much smaller share of our service is currently appropriate to be operated with electric buses. At this point, even though MTS and Plymouth have some blocks of service that passed all 3 evaluation criteria filters, the reality is that the garages that are we operate out of are privately owned. And so making that investment into those garages isn't a good strategy at this point. So we have some further things that we will need to do at this point. So on the flip side, what does our demand response side look like for Metro Mobility and Transit Link? As you can see in this slide, the presence of a Metro Mobility type vehicle, which we refer to as cutaways, in the transit industry is minimal throughout the country. The adoption of zero-emission demand response vehicles is much slower to evolve than on the big bus industry because range is much lower. Third-party installers do the installations, which really add to the price of these vehicles, making them almost 3 times more expensive than what you can get currently in a gas-operated vehicle. But we do know it is a quickly evolving industry, and BEB technology on cutaway buses give us some opportunities down the road when Ford potentially takes its technology that they've already developed on their pickup trucks and moves them into the E-Series chassis. So there are opportunities, hopefully on the near horizon. And of note within this table, pardon me, a lot of the existing BEBs listed in here are from California, which has significant state policies around zero emission, as well as a moderate climate that allows for more consistent vehicle range than we would see operating in Minnesota. So the findings on the demand responsive side, this slide illustrates why there are so few BEBs in demand response service environment. Currently, cutaway buses have a 60-mile range on their worst day per charge during our coldest part of the year. Our plan needs to take into account the worst operating days so that there is no disruption to service. So viable BEB technology for most on-demand service doesn't exist today. We would need to more than triple the fleet size and at triple the price per unit, and also build out the garages and charging infrastructure. The cost implications are further magnified by the fact that all of the Metro Mobility and Transit Link garages are privately owned or leased. Investing in charging infrastructure with private ownership isn't an option at this point. So I've talked about a few of the challenges. Here's a few more before we get to the good news. So in addition to the huge capital resources it would take to convert demand services to BEB vehicles under the current state of technology, there are additional challenges associated with contracted services. So here's just a few of them. MTS and Plymouth would need to own garages or enter into long-term leases. 2, for every gas bus removed from the demand response service and replaced with BEBs would require significantly more drivers to operate our service. Thirdly, we continue to experience supply chain constraints in the bus build industry, and these have also affected the BEBs as well. And fourth, the speed of innovation is easier to manage with small bus purchases with a 5-year replacement schedule versus a 12-year replacement life on our bigger buses. And so here's where some of the opportunities come up. As technology emerges in the small bus world, say with Ford or Chevrolet, because that's a 5-year changeover in fleet, we can make that happen at a faster pace as we bring fleet in and out of service. So the opportunity to pivot could be much faster on the small bus side. All right, what are those near-term opportunities? So one of the things that we think we need to focus on is service should focus on the Metro Transit side and continue to closely monitor the small bus market for zero-emission options. In addition, we plan to conduct a facility study and develop a plan that can move contracted services in the direction of zero-emission buses. So the study would look at locations for potentially building a garage on the MTS side or leasing a facility where it makes sense from service delivery and electrical feeds and those kinds of things. Our partners at Southwest Transit are planning a pilot of small electric buses starting in 2025 with demand response service, as well as 4 electric MCI coach buses with funding through a federal grant that are on order. So we're moving forward there. MBTA recently demonstrated a 25-foot small electric bus manufactured in Turkey. This was in the news a few weeks ago, and also plans to pursue grants to fund the transition to electrification. Southwest Transit and MBTA are in a position similar to Metro Transit. They own their own garage facilities, and so moving forward with that kind of infrastructure cost makes more sense with their own facilities. MTS's next big step is to conduct that feasibility study around ownership, long-term leasing of contract garages. Other opportunities exist, what I call the low-hanging fruit. As we replace our 31 SUVs that we operate in Metro Mobility Service, it's very possible that we could replace those with electric SUVs on our next replacement. And that would be a good start for us. Lower electrical capacity need to charge those, and then gives us a chance to get out there and test the technology. So with that, I would be glad to take any questions.
All right, Councilmember Carter.
I was just wondering what percentage of SUVs initially do you plan on bringing online as a percentage of the current amount of SUVs that you have?
Madam Chair, Council Member, so right now we have 31 total SUVs in the Metro Mobility fleet. Our next purchase would be for 25 that are due for replacement, I believe, in 2024. So we can start taking a look at the state contract to see what's available in electric SUVs, what range they have, begin to work with our garages and folks like Xcel Energy on those opportunities.
Any additional questions or comments? All right.
Madam Chair, I would just add that we are excited to pursue a facility study. The facilities aspect of this, one of the things that I've come to learn about electric buses and more from my Metro Transit experience prior is that it's really an infrastructure project with a small vehicle component. The timeline, the scale, the magnitude of infrastructure, the lead time associated with that is significant. And as Paul mentioned, just doesn't align with, if you have a 4-year lead time to electrify a facility, it doesn't work with a 5-year contract that has no further guarantee behind it. So a facility study really would be one of our next steps, but also something that would fundamentally change our business model if it were to be pursued, really a new area for us. So we'll be exploring that, both the operational components, the contractual components, as well as the organizational meaning of that business model, because, as Paul noted, more than half of the miles that are operated in the region in transit are actually on the MTS side, and the bulk of those in Metro Mobility. So a significant opportunity for the council to be a leader in this arena as the technology develops, but the facilities component hand in glove of overcoming those challenges.
Okay, just as an aside, I noticed there's going to be a $7,500 tax break for new EVs. Does that apply to an entity to you guys, or is that only for private individuals?
Madam Chair, council members, yeah, since we don't pay any taxes on vehicles, we don't qualify for the tax breaks either. So But they'd be great to have.
I was just wondering, yeah.
You know, there's different leasing arrangements where a leasing company might be able to get that benefit, and, you know, there's a lot of sort of business components that we'll be looking into as this develops. So, different ways to capture value across the industry, but the administration investing heavily in electric bus procurements, so significant opportunities for electric bus grants, especially as we have this document in place and are able to pursue those opportunities in the future.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? All right, just a note to the newer council members, we do have a zero emissions bus plan for Metro Transit as well. So this was for MTS and the suburban providers. And so at some point, I'm pricing with Leslie and Brian's here, we'll come back with some information on that so you can see, you know, what we're doing, how we're looking at it. It factors in both the rolling stock, but also our infrastructure and lots of other pieces. But we'll bring that back so you can get kind of the big picture of what we're doing all across the region. So, all right.
Thank you. And of note, Madam Chair, we will be coming back at the next Transportation Committee for Transportation Committee approval of the MTS Zero Emission Bus Plan.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. And we are on to our final information item tonight, and it's about the regional solicitation. We actually have Joe Barbeau here to present.
Thank you, Chair. As Chair Berber mentioned, my name is Joe Barbeau. I am Senior Planner at MTS on the planning side. My pronouns are he, him, and you can call me Joe. I'm here for Steve Peterson, who's got a child with strep throat. Mine has kennel cough, so apparently that's not as transferable, so I'm here. I'm going to actually use my screen here because I can't, the angles aren't good for me. So, so I know that some of you are fairly new, so feel free to ask questions about the regional solicitation itself. We're just going to talk a little bit about the changes that are going on from the last solicitation, which isn't a lot, and I'll get into why in a second. So we're on a little bit of a faster schedule than usual for our $250 million we've got available for years 28 and 29, fiscal years 28 and 29. And so we are about, for those of you who have been through this process, we're about 6 months ahead of our normal schedule. So TAB will be releasing the solicitation public comment next month in May. And you can see the rest of the schedule. I won't go bullet by bullet, but we'll be awarding projects next summer of 2024, which is going to be about 6 months faster than usual. And the reason for that is that it's quite a large solicitation that was created in 2014, and it's been tweaked from year to or cycle to cycle since then, about every other year. And we're looking at a major evaluation of the solicitation and probably a lot of changes for the 2026 solicitation. That's going to start this summer, and so what we wanted to do is make a fairly quick turnaround with very few changes going into the 2024 solicitation as a way to really save time, or to make time, I should say, to really dig into the regional solicitation evaluation starting up this summer. So expect more changes next time and few changes this time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that might be changing. One thing we heard from TAB members, technical and policy committee members, and on the surveys, and from just about anybody that commented, is that they want to see a high priority for safety. And so that is one thing that we looked at without really being able to take the time to make a big overhaul to how we grade safety. We looked into how to weight safety. And so what we're doing, what we've recommended and where we're at right now is adding 100 points to safety-related scoring criteria for most of the regional solicitation scoring funding categories. Right now, the recommendation, we're at funding and programming stage, so things could change, so don't write this down. But right now, the recommendation is to add 100 points for everything outside of the transit categories, and the reason for that is that there's a transit working group that didn't want to see transit. They didn't want to see transit add points because really the impetus for these these safety concerns are based on collisions, and safety. Transit safety is a little bit of a different discussion, and I think folks just want to see maybe that discussion take place before adding any points to that. So that's where we're at right now. And so we'll see how that plays out at TAAC and then at TAB, but something with more safety points for at least some of the projects, or some of the categories, I should say, is probably going to be part of what they approve. So There's been some discussion on federal maximum awards. This is the minimum and maximum award you can apply for federal funding. And the reason for a lot of discussion on the maximum awards is because we've seen obviously a lot of inflation. These amounts don't cover as high a percentage of the projects as they used to. Some of these federal maximums have been around since 2014. Some have changed, have increased. A couple have even decreased because there hasn't been a lot of demand for the high amounts. So it's sort of a balancing act between we want to fund more projects or we want to fund a higher proportion of the project. And we've got members on both sides of those arguments in our technical committees. That funding and programming last week, they recommended no changes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to shake out. Again, we'll see how that goes, but there could be discussion, particularly of those two $7 million ones at the bottom of the roadways, road reconstruction and modernization and bridge replacement and rehabilitation. Those have been $7 million since 2014, and we have definitely heard some sponsors say that they'd like to see those go up, along with Safe Routes to School at $1 million. Pedestrian facilities went up to $2 million just a cycle or two ago, and I think there's some folks that want to see Safe Routes match that. And finally,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I was just going to say, so the tension in this discussion amongst the committees is, do you want to fund more projects or do you want to fund larger amounts to more completely fund a project? And it's really kind of varied by interest and category, and those two categories are ones that have stood out as, we really need more to make effective projects in these areas. So with a finite pool of funding, really the policy choice comes down to, do you want more projects or fewer projects with more money?
It's a double-edged sword for sure. So this is actually the last slide we have. This is a pretty short update, but the map you see there is an example of maps that we're going to share of all the funded projects for the 2014 through 22 solicitations. This is one of the council districts, District 4, and we'll have one for each of those districts. I already mentioned the solicitation, the regional solicitation evaluation, and that's going to be probably a 1.5 to 2 year effort to align the TPP, which of course is also being developed with the regional solicitation. Many of you will probably participate in those activities. Actually, I'm sure the entire Transportation Committee will. And you will see several presentations during the course of that process, mostly from Steve Peterson, I imagine. We're also going to be exploring how to deal with carbon reduction funds. So for the last 7 or 8 cycles, the regional solicitation has been a pretty steady diet of surface transportation program funds and CMAQ funds, congestion mitigation and air quality. And those are still the predominant funds there, but we do have the carbon reduction program, which is a very new program, and we distributed some funds through the regional solicitation last time. But I don't think, we did that because there was a real need to do that in a hurry. And I think there'll be discussions on how to distribute those in the long run. And those are about $6 to $8 million a year. And then finally, you'll be a part of the concurrence on the selected project in the next summer, 2024. So you sort of have two things going on, the 2024 solicitation and then the evaluation going on for the 2026 and beyond regional solicitation. So you'll see us quite a bit on this topic. And that's really all that I have for now, but I'm happy to answer questions about the solicitation. I know for some of you, this is probably a little bit nebulous.
Director Carlson, and then I might have a question or a comment too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll just add that the carbon reduction funds are not regional solicitation funds. So those funds come to the council for determination of what to do. In the previous solicitation, the council selected projects that had been submitted for the solicitation, but it will be important. It's an important distinction that they're not solicitation funds in the same way. So it'll be a policy decision for the council of how to approach that, and we'll be working on that with you. The other thing I'll mention is, a reason why we're moving up this cycle's timing is so that these projects can be selected under the current transportation policy plan. Then later next fall, you'd adopt the new transportation policy plan, and then the 2026 solicitation would really be based on that new plan. So that's the reason for the sequencing and the acceleration, as Joe mentioned, is about this 3-step process of the evaluation, the 24 solicitation, and the next transportation policy plan, so that redesign is really based on the new goals and objectives and the investment plan that you adopt for the region.
And so I just had one comment, so, if anyone doesn't know, I'm the council representative on TAAC, and a lot of the conversation, especially about that first topic, the safety criteria waive, there's been a lot of discussion about that, especially with, when you look at some intersections, some roadways that have a high safety component to them, but also through our TPP listening sessions, when we're going back and doing those look backs, by far, the biggest thing we hear about is safety. And so I think those two things are coming together to see if in the solicitation, the last solicitation, we chose a heavy bike ped focus, and that was sort of the will of TAAC. And this is sort of having that conversation, but maybe focusing more on safety for this round as one of the main measures, as it's affected everything but the transit projects. The scoring right there would be the same. But I know that regional solicitation is, for people, it's new, it can be kind of confusing, and if anyone wants to get a better understanding and go a little further in the weeds, by all means, let one of us know, and we'll take care of that.
I just had a quick
Councilmember
question.
Carter.
Probably reading this map wrong, but, it says, and maybe it's just an example, District 4, you got the funded projects. Right next to that is District 3, and you have all those grade projects. Are those funded or also?
Chair and member, I didn't make this map, but I believe so. I believe this is designed to highlight, to
It's
darken
just an example.
to darken the District 4 and to also kind of show, but not as highlighted the other districts.
So Madam Chair, we'd have another map for District 3 where
Okay,
it sort of
because
highlights those ones.
my heart went up in my throat a little bit.
I believe I put District 4, I think because it's my district is my
Okay.
guess.
Yeah, we only fund Deb's district, actually.
Don't tell anyone. All right, additional questions or comments? All right, very good. Thank you, Joe. Did you have any final comments on this? All right, with that, that concludes our business for the evening. If there's no objections, all right, we are adjourned.